There are women who are highly creative, intelligent, and wise, but their inner child is running their business. When the inner child's wound has never been resolved deeply on a root level, then doesn't matter how hard you're working, what kind of strategy you're applying, what kind of marketing you're doing, you will always find yourself stuck in an income ceiling that you can't break free from. And this is why I want to talk to you about that, because this is the core of the issue most women experience when they are running business, when they are highly ambitious and they want to grow their income, they want to expand their wealth and have that success and freedom. What they find is they find themselves in a place, they are working hard, they are trying to produce high level of work, but is still from a wounded place. And that's what inner child does. It keeps you looping in the same place over and over, trying different things but reaching the same place, same ceiling, without a breakthrough, without exponential growth, without quantum leaping in your wealth. This is why when the inner child wound is not resolved, it dominates your adult life. And some people will say, well, I have done inner child work, but actually the inner child work that they did was not deep enough, because if it was deep enough, then they will not experience that stuckness, that survival, that place where they are stuck in a certain income and they are not experiencing the success. So this is why I love to talk about the deeper things that actually dictates our reality, because the deeper we go, the higher we leap. The deeper we see the truth of our being, where our inner child was hurt, where the wounding was created. And when you can go really deep, when you can truly see the truth and you can shed that light, when you can resolve it, when you can alchemize it, that's when you quantum leap. And this is not healing work, this is a frequency work. This is the work that allows your frequency to shift on a higher level. This is why I like to go to the core and the root of the issue and not the surface of the pain. Welcome to Healed by Sadaf Heals podcast, a place where you tap into your divine power to create emotional and financial freedom. So I'm going to give you some examples so that you really truly understand how deeper this inner child wounding goes, so that you understand it, so that you can alchemize it, so that you can actually do the deeper work. So when a child goes through certain experiences, emotional disconnect and chaos that they experience in their reality when they are growing up, so that chaos, that emotional unsafety can create multiple different types of wound. It is not just one thing. There are different parts, because we are multi-dimensional being. In order to create the higher level of success and actually become the alchemist and to become that whole being that is operating and magnetizing that love, success, freedom, wealth, opportunities, we have to look at all different perspectives. So when a child goes through these patterns of emotional neglect, these patterns of chaos, they are trying to find and survive. They are trying to find, hold on to things, something that can make them feel safe. So imagine somebody who is drowning. And when they're drowned, they're trying to hold on to something. And when they don't find anything to hold on to, they start internalizing their emotions. They start suppressing for them to survive. And that can look like being highly available for other people, being the strong one, being the one who feels responsible for their parents' pain, their mother, their father, their siblings. They feel responsible in some way, that they feel that it's their responsibility to fix, to help, to resolve pain for people who meant to take care of them, and they some way they feel guilt, they feel shame. And that, as a child, when you feel that, of course we don't remember that, but we know the experiences we've gone through, we know how we felt in those experiences. So for example, when my mother was working hard, she was a single parent and she was a teacher, and as a child I was highly sensitive, highly intuitive. So just imagine, I was 3.5 years old when my brother was born. And when my brother was born, my mother was alone in the hospital, and the nurse brought me and put me on top of my mother to comfort her in some way, because she fainted and she lost a lot of blood. And my brother, when he was born, he was very weak. So imagine, as a 3.5 year old, I was in that experience, even though I don't fully remember that. I was so young. My mother was not in her senses. She fainted. And after a while, she woke up, and in that moment, the only person she had in the hospital was me, 3.5 year old. So I helped my mother to take her to the bathroom because my mother could not walk. And I was that person who helped her to take her to the bathroom. So can you imagine a responsibility as a child, as a 3.5 year old child, to have that type of responsibility? So growing up, after that, I learned that it's my job to protect my mother. It's my job to take care of my mother. So I used to be very hostile as a child. I used to be very aggressive. Like, I would be so protective of my mother that if anybody said anything, I remember I was 10 years old and I would fight people. I would fight my uncles if they said anything to my mother, and I would stand up against them and I would speak up, because I had so much aggression and anger, because I felt such a deep emotion that I have to protect my mother. So imagine a child growing through that experience. What would they become? They will become somebody who everyone depend on them, but they have nobody to depend on. They will become the support system. They will become perfectionists. They will become even more empathic and even more sensitive to emotions. And that's what my childhood was, where I became that version of me that was always giving, always providing, always supporting, but never seeing my own desires, my own needs, my own wants. I never cared about my own desires because I was so focused on providing and giving. This is what a lot of women go through, not specifically what I experience, but on some level, they've gone through that experience in their life where they become the provider, they become the protector of their caregivers, they become that person who take care of their family from a very, very young age. So they become perfectionists. They cannot make mistakes. They have to hold on to all the emotion. They have to be the strong one, right? And that can create that separation from our true essence, from who we want to be. Because when we run a business, when we try to become successful from a place of wounding, that I was not given that comfort, that safety to flourish, to shine, and I had to be that strong one who holds on to everything, that is a very shaky foundation to build a business, to build career, because you will always be fighting to be seen and to be heard, to find that comfort, because that comfort was never provided. That safety was never provided. So you will constantly find yourself that you want to be seen through your clients, you want to be seen through your business partners, you want to be seen and accepted by your bosses. And that can create that fake sense of self. That is not a true sense of self. That is a false sense of self. And that false sense of self eventually breaks. And that's where people experience collapse, and they experience breakdowns, they experience burnout, they experience emotional exhaustion and panic attacks, right? That's where people experience, because you cannot build something from a place of that I have to do everything, I have to control everything, I am the one who has to provide all the time. You have to create that safety, that love, that comfort within yourself. And when the inner child is so wounded and abandoned and neglected, it will never allow itself to feel safe, because it does not feel safe in its body, because they've gone through so many things. They experienced so many things. They always relied on other people's emotions. Okay, this is the key. They looked at themselves through other people's eyes. That's why. The inner child wounding is so deep that people learn to look at themselves through other people's eyes because they are so emotionally disconnected with themselves, because they don't feel safe in their body. So they wait for other people to tell them who they are. If other people are happy with them, if other people are accepting them, if other people are loving them, if other people are seeing their value and their worth. And if other people don't see their value and their worth, what happens? They blame themselves. They feel like they're not perfect enough. They feel like they have made mistakes. They feel like they have to be more perfect. They have to do a better job. They have to even try harder. And that is a toxic loop and a pattern that creates more wounds, more rejection, more abandonment, more pain. Does that make sense? This is why a business that is built by a person who has inner child wounding, they will sabotage the success of their own business. They will not allow their business to flourish because they are operating from that false sense of self. And that false sense of self has no foundation. That's why the breakdown happens. That's why the collapse happens. And this is why we go deeper into the place of where you actually see yourself, where you stop abandoning yourself. Because when a child is being abandoned, they grow up as an adult, start abandoning themselves, because that is the pattern familiar to their body. And that familiarity, that I will abandon myself, and that's why they attract people, opportunities, clients, love interests, all that abandon them, because that is the deeper pattern operating in that person that creates, that magnetize that type of experience in an external reality. Because the frequency is a match to people who will abandon, who will reject, who will cause pain, who will cause issues and drama. I know somebody who's a business owner, and she attracted a business partner who cost her whole business. Literally every single thing. She made 7-figure in her business, but all of that was gone because the business partner she attracted was aligned with that narcissistic, that manipulative, with that pattern of abandonment, wounding. And that's why the business collapsed completely, because it was not sustainable. So this is why it is important. It's not about just from a smaller level, but even on a bigger level. Even if you work hard and make something out of it, eventually there's a way to sabotage it. I've known a lot of people who sabotage the wealth that they had. They had a lot of money, but they sabotaged it completely because of that inner abandonment, that inner childhood patterns, that wound that keep creating that same loop, the same reality over and over. I'm talking about just one of the wound, abandonment wound, but there are so many different type of inner child wounding that can create different type of pattern. This is why the deeper work is required in order to shift and release, so that you quantum leap to experience that wealth and abundance, that 7-8-figure business, 9-figure business, where you're moving from the place of safety and anchoring in your truth, in your conviction, being completely connected to who you are on a deeper level. And this is the type of work that I do with my clients, where they quantum leap their business. Actually, I had a conversation with a client yesterday. She had an investment that was stuck for many, many years, and she tried everything. There was always an issue. There was a document issue, or this issue, that issue. For years, that investment was stuck. She could not get it. When we did the deeper work together, we released the wounding around receivership, being able to receive higher level of wealth and income. Not only, so yesterday she told me, not only she got her investment back very easily. It happened so fast. Within a month and a half, her investment came back, but also it was more than what she expected. A lot more than what she expected. So she bought a property through that investment that she received. And that is what I'm talking about. When we release that deeper wounding, we quantum leap our income, wealth, abundance in such a bigger way. And that's why it is important to do the deeper work. And if you are interested, you can click the link below to apply for my mentoring. But I want to give you another example. And that example is, people think by after years and years, time heals and you kind of forget about what happened and you kind of get over it and you move on and it's fine. But the truth is, that's not the case. Because even if you forget about it, that is numb in your body, that is numb in your nervous system, your cellular system, your subconscious programming is still operating from that place because it is within you. Just because you're not crying about it doesn't mean it has been resolved. And the reason I say that, because I know people actually within my family, my relatives who are 70-year-old or over, and they still talk about what happened in their childhood. Every time we meet them, that is the conversation, that what happened, how they were not provided, how they had to work very young, how things were really difficult, how they had to survive. And they are in a lot of pain, a lot of hurt, and they are over 70. And they are still talking about what happened in their childhood, how their parents did not provide for them, how they had to survive, how they had to work through as a 13, 14-year-old. And of course, it's traumatic. Of course, it's not right. But what I'm trying to tell you, that feeling doesn't go away. That hurt and pain and trauma does not go away. So every time we meet them, it is the same conversation, it's the same pain, it is the same hurt, and it's very deep, it's very core. So even though that person is over 70-year-old, but actually from the inside, they are still that child. The child who did not have what they desired, that child that was not protected, that was not safe, that did not feel loved, that did not feel provided for. And they have a business, but the business is really run from a place of a lot of wound. And it's constant around that wounding, that victim story. And I'm not saying that because their pain does not matter. And I've gone through a lot of pain, but we have to learn to get over the story. And if we are struggling to get over the story, then there is the deeper wounding. And this is why it is important, because when the business is built on a victim wounded story, from a victimhood, from a wounded place, it will collapse. So we constantly see that they don't have the money, they don't have this, they don't have that. There is always something going on. They are never happy. They're always complaining about the money. And it's all the scarcity, poverty mindset, and the victim story keeps going on and on and on throughout their life. It has never ended. And now they are physically sick. They cannot even move because all of that has created some deep, deep wounding. Some people may say, well, why can't you help them? The truth is, you can't help everyone. And that's the biggest lesson and learning for me, that you can want to heal the whole world. You can want to help the whole world. But if the world is not ready for the help, for the healing, you cannot do anything. It is a very personal accountability and responsibility that comes from a very deeper place from that person. And I used to be that person who used to wanting to fix everyone, wanted to fix my family, wanted to fix every single person that I meet. And I always found myself being even more hurt because they were not seeing what I was trying to say. They were not ready to hear what I had to say. And when somebody is not ready to hear, you cannot help them. Their journey is going through their own path, their own pain, their own journey. They have to figure out their own way. And eventually, when they reach to the level where they're ready for help, that's when I can help them. That's when I can really resolve their pain. But if they're not ready, I cannot push or force them to be ready, right? This is why the deeper work is required, because when I was operating from a wounded place, I wanted to help. I so deeply wanted to help everyone. I so deeply wanted to fix every single person, my siblings, my family, people, my friends. But I realized that created more resistance, more resentment, more anger in them because they were not ready. They were not ready to see the truth. They were not ready to see the light. And when somebody is not ready to see the truth and light, we cannot force it, because the truth is universal power is that everyone has their own path and everyone has their own free will. Everyone has their own journey. So ultimately, what I am trying to say here, that the deeper core wounding, if it's not resolved, can dictate all your life. And that life becomes extremely painful. That business becomes extremely painful, or constantly rise and fall, rise and fall. You're constantly in that state where you are not balancing the frequency, moving higher and higher, but actually collapsing and moving, collapsing and moving. And that is not sustainable. That is what creates burnout. That's what creates a lot of pain. That's what creates a lot of suffering. You want to keep rising. You can experience the dip, but the dips are getting smaller, not bigger. If the dips are huge and constantly is these type of waves in your business, where you are one day you have a lot of money, you're a success, another day things are not working, and that dip is strong and you're feeling emotionally really affected, you're not experiencing that shift in your reality on a bigger level, then that is all to do with your inner child. And when we release the inner child wounding, we release the shame, we release the guilt, we release the belief that keeps you stuck in the same loop, you will start moving higher and higher, the dips getting smaller and smaller, and then you keep cruising towards that quantum leap. And that's the work that magnetizes wealth, impact, visibility on a bigger level. You don't believe me? You can check out my Instagram. You can check out the quantum leaps I'm experiencing there. The videos are just going hundreds and thousands of views, millions of views, because the inner child is no longer controlling my external reality. I am operating from that certainty, that conviction, that truth, that light. I am in a stronger place energetically, emotionally, because the wounding has gone and alchemized, and that's the foundation is needed in order to quantum leap in your business, in your success. So if you are ready for that quantum leap, then you can click the link below to apply for my mentoring, where we go deeper into shifting your wealth identity, teach you how to actually embody, because most people, they have the awareness, they have the knowledge, but they haven't embodied the wealth identity. They haven't embodied the version of them that actually makes it. And that will include the nervous system regulation, that will include inner child healing, that will include releasing all those core wounding in order to create that quantum leap that you deserve, your business deserve, your life deserve. And if you are ready for that, click the link below to apply for my mentoring. Other than that, like this video if you like this video, and subscribe to my channel. And may the light in me reaches the light in you.